Hello Internet, it's me Josh, the Aging Gamer. So, this is a pretty big video for me. This is a milestone I'm hitting right here. This is my 150th retro review. That's insane! You know, I started this channel almost 8 years ago. I did my very first retro review on the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and here I am 150 videos later. Well, not videos, I've done other videos too, but 150 reviews later. And to me, that's just insane. I didn't think I'd be doing this YouTube thing that long, but here I am. So, 150 retro reviews. What does this mean? Nothing really. It doesn't mean a damn thing. But I guess it's still kind of cool. So, with this being a big milestone like this, what kind of game do I even review? Looking back on my 50th review, I did The Legend of Zelda. For my 100th review, I did Super Mario Brothers. So I guess for 150, I should do another classic NES game. And I can't think of any better time to do this than right now. Let's talk about Double Dragon 2.
Double Dragon, the greatest martial arts video game legend ever.
After the success of the first Double Dragon game in arcades, a sequel was of course made. And with the sequel made, you know an NES port would be coming. Developed again by Technos Japan, but published by Acclaimed instead of Tradewest this time around, Double Dragon 2 came out on the NES in 1990. And it's one of those games that's considered a must-have, but is it still good by today's standards? Let's find out. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Double Dragon 2: The Revenge. So before we get to the game, let's talk about the box art, because this box art is badass! Look at this shit right here, this is awesome! You see the badass Billy Lee hanging onto a smoking hot babe as he's fighting off these punk-ass jabronis while alongside his brother, Jimmy Lee. Again, this is pretty cool art and one of my favorite covers for an NES game. Now, there's a few differences with the box art compared to other consoles and regions. Look at the Japanese art. It's actually pretty close to the US version, except for that Marion's skirt is pink instead of red, and she's also got some underbutt exposed. I guess you can consider this the uncensored version. Now look at this one used for computers. Yikes, how is this the same picture, yet so uncool looking? Look at these faces. So anyway, let's get to the story here. So, remember what happened in the first Double Dragon NES game? Billy Lee's girlfriend, Marion, was kidnapped by the Black Warriors gang. Billy beat the shit out of, well, everyone to save her, and it ended up that his brother, Jimmy Lee, was the leader of the Black Warriors, and Billy had to beat the shit out of him too. So, how does the sequel follow up on that? It doesn't really. According to the game manual, there was apparently a nuclear war, and the Black Shadow Gang have taken over the city. They even forced their way into the Double Dragon Dojo, where they defeated all of Billy and Jimmy Lee's students, and even gunned down Marion. Jeez! And now it's up to Billy and Jimmy to stop the Black Shadow Gang and save the city. So, Billy and Jimmy are on good terms now. I guess we beat some sense into them in the first game. And also, what the fuck? Marion's dead? She was the whole reason that we went through everything in the first game, and they're just gonna kill her off at the beginning of this one? Why is she even on the cover of the box then? Well, whatever. Let's start up the game. We got a few options here. We can pick between 1 player and 2 players. And yes, this game actually has same screen co-op, rather than the taking turns 2-player styles that was in the first game. Not that it really matters, because I'm always playing these games by myself. Also, there's a difficulty setting. If you want to see the whole game, you have to pick the hardest difficulty, Supreme Master. Which is the setting that we're gonna pick. This is gonna get tough, but luckily I got some tricks up my sleeves. When it comes to these retro games, I've mastered the art of cheeseballing. So, we're gonna pick 2P Play B. This is 2-player mode with the friendly fire. Why pick 2 players? So I can beat the shit out of this non-existent player too! And for every kill I get an extra life in return, meaning you can start this game with the whole 8 lives instead of 4! Fantastic! Cheeseballing at its finest! Also, this gives us a good chance to warm up and test our moves. So unlike the last game where you kind of leveled up by beating up enemies and you learn their moves, in this game all the moves are available from the start. They can be kind of tricky to pull off, and since we're going to be doing those special moves quite a bit, let's stretch out these fingers. Ready? Alright, let's go! The controls here are simple at first. There's a button to punch, and there's a button to kick behind you. The problem, though, is that the buttons change depending on your position on the screen. For example, if your character is looking towards the right side of the screen, you'll press A to punch and B to back kick. Now if you turn around, the controls will now be B to punch and A to back kick. It's a bit confusing at first, and hell, even in the heat of battle, I still get mixed up. I suppose the best way to remember the controls are you will always press B to attack to the left, and you will always press A to attack to the right. Outside of this over-convoluted attack system, there are some special moves you need to know. First off, the Hyper Uppercut. Jump in the air, and as soon as Billy lands, he crouches for a split second. When he's crouching, press the punch button and you'll end up doing the Hyper Uppercut. Gnarly. Next move, the Cyclone Kick. At the height of your jump, press both A and B at the same time and you'll perform this badass spinning kick. Bodacious. And for the next and final move, the strongest in the game I might add, the High Jump Kick. That's what this game calls it anyway. Most people call it the Hyper Knee. If you're a wrestling fan like myself, I like to call this the V-Trigger. Anyway, to perform this move, jump, and when you land and crouch, press the direction you want to move towards and A and B at the same time. It's the most difficult move to pull off, but it's also the most satisfying. Radical. To perform all these special moves, it's easier said than done. You have to press specific buttons at certain times to pull these moves off. So if you have any kind of lag in your setup, just keep practicing. So now that we killed off Jimmy Lee, which is kind of ironic that we're starting this game how we ended the last one, we move forward. We're going to run into a lot of familiar enemies. In this stage, we'll first run into Ropers, then Lindas, and then some Williams. Dang, look at that fancy sprite work. So some of the enemies have weapons. You can typically punch the weapon off of them and use it yourself. However, in this game, once you beat the enemies on that particular screen, the weapon disappears. That's kinda lame. So in this stage, there's lots of punching and we'll also be climbing ladders. At the end, we got a boss fight with the character known as Burnoff. So this guy here, he's a dick. If you get close, he'll lift you by your head and gut punch you. See? I told you he's a dick. So be careful when you're close. If you can do the Hyper Knee or Cyclone Kicks, go for it. We start the next mission and we're on some rooftops. We'll punch some enemies off roofs, and we'll even make people fall to their deaths before they even have a chance to fight us. Ha ha ha! Again, cheeseballing. At the end of this stage, we fight some thugs and then some ninjas. I hate these guys. They're fast and furious. You have to fight 2 of them. Sometimes if you're lucky, one of them will go off screen and just not return. So defeat him and we'll move on. Hold it! You'll never escape from us! Grasp! So our next stage is in the helicopter, this tiny little room. We got some new enemies called Right Arms. When I fight them, I try to get close and personal with these guys, as I find that just using standard punches works pretty well. As you fight though, the helicopter door will just casually open, sucking everyone out of the chopper. Fortunately for us, this works for bad guys too. Try to get those suckers out of here. boss of this stage is... a returning Abobo! But what is with that hair? Maybe it's just me, but I think he kind of looks like a bloated Danny Trejo. Anyway, you can attack him until he's dead, but if you can get him to fly out of the helicopter, well, that'll just be nice too. The fourth stage has us going through an underwater base. It's a pretty plain stage until you reach this part here, where there's spikes on the ceiling. You can't even jump or else you'll just hurt yourself. Freaking A! Beating up standard enemies like this isn't so bad, but when they introduce a new enemy that looks just like Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know you're in trouble. I don't even have a strategy on beating him here. I just get my ass kicked while I slowly damage him to death. We move forward and great, another Abobo that's gonna kick my ass. That was tough, but there's still one more thing we have to do before this level ends, and that's going through this door. If you're going into this game blind, you're likely going to lose a life here or just fall straight down. When you go through the door, you just have to go straight down, jump to the next platform, and try to go straight up. That was a simple but effective trap. The next stage, we're in the Forest of Death. Here we'll fight a bit of everyone, including several Abobos. Son of a bitch! Hopefully you've mastered the art of jumping in this game because there's a short part here where you gotta jump on platforms. Fuck up and you'll get wet. And you'll die from said wetness. At the end we have a boss fight with... What? What is this? It's just a giant contraption. Your goal is to climb to the top while this contraption annoyingly moves back and forth. Once you reach the top, it stops moving, but a bunch of annoying assholes come out. Beat them all up, and Arnold Schwarzenegger returns. Luckily, my cheese balling techniques come into play. We're getting closer to the end now, and the next stage has us in a spooky-ass mansion of terror. I like the cool glowing eyes visuals here, but they ultimately are just there for aesthetics. The real horror of this mansion is having to deal with these Houdini platforms. Fuck! And then you have to deal with jumping on awkward conveyor belts. Fuck! Yet again! And then you go straight into several rooms where you have to beat up bad guys before the flooring totally disappears. Fuck! Once more! And then lastly, you'll have a stupid room where you have to jump on rotating gears while avoiding jumping spikes. Fuck all this bullshit! So in this game, when you lose all your lives, there's no continues, it's game over. Luckily, there's cheat codes that you can use, but they kind of vary depending on what level you're playing on. So make sure you got your game FAQs page loaded up. And for the boss of this level, well, it's just a small army of grunts to fight. So let's do it, let's fight! Cheese ball, cheese ball, cheese ball! Alright, we're getting close to the end. This game could really wear you out though, but we're so close, let's finish this! So the 8th mission has us doing, you guessed it, fighting more enemies. I'm getting worn out, but I can still give these guys a licking. I'll give all these assholes a licking. We'll drop down in this section and fight a couple of Abobos. Then we'll move over and fight some ninjas. I hate these fucking guys, but defeat them and we'll fight a shadow version of ourselves? Well, of course, why not? It seems like all great video game heroes eventually fight some sort of shadow version of themselves. The difference here is that the shadow clone can also teleport and do the Hadouken. Now that I think about it, is this the final boss from the first game? I mean, I know the arcade versions have their different endings and all that, but is this the boss from the first Double Dragon NES game? This kind of makes sense. If this shadow clone can take the form of us, it would make sense if it took the form of Jimmy Lee in the last game to try to throw Billy Lee off, meaning the two brothers were never really at war with each other. It makes sense to me, but maybe I'm just overthinking it. What do you guys think? So with this fight, keep moving, don't hold still. Wait for the shadow clone to appear and then do your best to hit him. After enough hits, we'll defeat him! Shit, we still got one more stage to go. But I'm down to 0 lives. Fuck! We get a short cutscene where Billy thinks he hears Marion. Impossible! But wait, there she is! What? Who's this clown? Shadow Warrior? Let's kick his goddamn ass! And hey, look at that! The game even gave me more life! Ha ha ha! Let's go! So he'll attack, of course, and you gotta retaliate when there's an opening. Just keep on him, and after we hit him so many times, we end up here. We'll just keep doing what we were doing before, and we can win! We can do this! So not only did we beat him up, we literally beat this guy to death. Their revenge was complete, at least for now. Jeez, what else will satisfy their bloodthirst? Marion, who had her corpse here for some reason, opens her eyes and by some fairy tale nonsense, she's alive! Woo! Which, her being alive gives us a much more satisfying ending, unlike the arcade version. So we did it! We beat the game! Haha! Double Dragon forever! Haha! So, yeah, that's Double Dragon 2 for the NES. How does it hold up? This game is highly considered a must-have for the NES. It's legendary in its own right, and overall, I think the game is pretty damn good. However, I still think it has its flaws. Minor flaws, but still flaws. And it's actually the issues I had with the first game, and that's these platforming sections. They just don't work. Having to press both A and B at the same time to jump, along with the wonky jump physics, as well as just dealing with these frustrating platforming areas that have no business being in a game like this, I don't like it. It might be a sin to say anything bad about this game, but I'm being honest, I don't think these parts work very well. But other than that, when it comes to the actual beat-em-up mechanics, it's great! I mean, I wish the punch and kick buttons wouldn't unnecessarily flip-flop, but the fighting works. The special moves could be a bit hard to pull off, but when you do hit one, man, does it feel satisfying. Add all of this along with some badass background music and unique levels, and it's a fun game. No doubt if you're new to the NES, this game is worth checking out. I don't think it's a game for everyone, but those who are into this genre, they should be pleased. But those are just my opinions. What do you guys think? What do you think of Double Dragon 2? Like the NES version? Like the arcade version? Don't like the game at all? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, like it, subscribe, yada yada yada, and thank you guys for sticking around for 150 retro reviews. That's amazing. I guess the goal now is 200. Let's see how long it takes us to get there, and let's see if we make it. My God. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you all on the next one. Take care.